Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday night edition of LFC Transfer Room. Before we dissect the post-match of what was certainly a game of two halves, let's do a couple of introductions. First, I'm your host, Richie, and I'm absolutely honoured to be joined again by Dylan, who's become a regular on the Saturday night stream for all of those who've been tuning in. How are you, Dylan?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, better after that second half performance, but as I say, we'll get into it. CT, your first ever Saturday night edition. Welcome to the Saturday Night Club. I hope you enjoy it. And usually it's the match preview because obviously the Champions League we tend to play, especially last year with the Europa League, we tended to play on a Sunday. But yeah, it's a Saturday post-match for once today. So how are you?
I'm doing well. Richie, it's a pleasure to be with you, and Harry and Dylan again. But what a day. What a great result across the league for us. And let's talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Some amazing results fell our way as well. It was definitely Liverpool's day today. And Harry, how are you? Again, making your debut on the Saturday Night Club.
Yeah, I'm not bad, mate. I'm happy to be here. I think I've just about recovered from shouting at my TV in that first half. So my throat, I should be ready to speak, hopefully. But yeah, I'm good, mate.
Good. Yeah, my telly was about to go through the window just before Cody Gakpo scored his goal because nothing at all was going right for Liverpool in that first half. And let's talk about that first, really, because that first half is probably the worst first half I've seen under Arne Slot. And nothing seemed to go right, whether it was the passing, whether it was that final ball, whether it was the defending. All of it was absolutely atrocious. And I have no idea why. There used to be a time under Jurgen where we used to say, oh, it's 12:30. It's the 12:30 kickoff. But with it being a 3 o'clock kickoff today, Dylan, what is it that went wrong? If you can try to summarize it, what bits is it that went wrong? And CT and Harry, I'll come to you as well with the same question, because just nothing worked really until Gakpo scored and Anfield came alive. I mean, we'll talk about the second half later, but that first half was nothing short of shambolic.
Yeah, and whilst we weren't great, we were kind of losing the ball quite a lot, and we couldn't really get any sort of rhythm to our play at all. Also, a lot of credit should go to Brighton in terms of how they played the first half as well. They were very, very good in the first half. They came with a clear plan of how to press, and it almost seemed like their press was working and ours wasn't in the first half to me. I mean, that did affect some of the play in terms of like midfielders being able to come and get on the ball as much because, like I say, they pressed us quite high. They pressed us quite aggressively. And I think in terms of the plan that they came up with in that, it was almost like stages of the second half against Nottingham Forest where they were pressing us high and they were winning the ball back in a lot of areas against us. And then when we were trying to attack them, they were kind of sat in banks, which kind of frustrated us. And I think that just started to affect our rhythm a little bit in the first half. And I think from there, Gravenberch trying to get on the ball a little bit more was always had 2 or 3 pressing him. McAllister couldn't really find the spaces where he was usually finding in some games. And I think in terms of passing out from the back, it wasn't really clicking at all in the first half. And I think we were lucky, in all honesty, at half time to only be 1 down, because look at the save Kelleher made in terms of that one-on-one, and then a couple of other moments as well where really if they could have really buried the game out of us, probably 2, maybe even more down at half time. So taking 1-0 into the second half, yes, we have the Ibou injury as well, which is a bad thing from the first half, but much better second half performance. And thank God it went that way in terms of the second half, because if it carried on the same way the first half was, it could have been any score really in the second half if we'd have been as bad in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't many highlights from a Liverpool point of view to take away apart from perhaps that Kelleher performance, because Danny Welbeck had a couple of free kicks. Now, one just went obviously the other side of the net, and one Kelleher got his back behind and he held the ball quite well. But that Rutter opportunity going in at 2-0 down, that would have been absolutely huge. So well done to Kelleher, because, again, coming up trumps. We said it last week, I think, Dylan. He's the best number 2 in the world, and actually he would get in most Premier League teams, maybe apart from 3 or 4 of them, and he proved his worth today with that save. Again, like CT, we're talking that nothing goes right in that first half, and that the Brighton press was brilliant. The Liverpool press was non-existent. There were a couple of times where I saw it was either Dom running and literally looked around and no one else was there. And I saw it happen with Darwin as well. And he's sort of like putting his hands out and the press wasn't there at all. What I really liked from Brighton's point of view, and I thought this would come unstuck actually in the second half if it wasn't for that Gakpo goal. When they switch, they go to 2 banks of 4 and a 2. And for that first half, Liverpool really struggled to beat the press of the 2 with obviously Konate and Virgil sitting there. They really struggled because Rutter and Danny Welbeck, they were rotating and shifting between the 2. So Liverpool couldn't even beat the 2 press, let alone the 2 banks of 4 afterwards. So, did you notice anything in the game today that perhaps raised red flags in terms of Liverpool's press? Was there anything in there that you thought, well, yeah, we can't get out of the 2. How on earth are we going to break down the next 8 of the pitch?
Yeah, it was a great point, Richie. And I thought Dylan summed it up well from my thoughts. I like to give a credit to the opponent. I think Brighton were really strong on the ball, and you got to win the ball back first, off them. And like you said, we had some trouble with our press. But yeah, I really think a couple of keys for me is, when you play a team, in consecutive games, there's a lot of things that they can look at and clean up, and it's tricky to back up and, beat a team twice, which we managed to do. So that makes it even more, impressive. And we'll talk about all the good stuff in the second half. But yeah, the first half, the other point I want to make is there's a couple of personnel changes from that other Brighton game. You had TSIMI come in for Robbo, you had Cody start in this one. So I think it was a little bit of everything. We were just, trying to integrate, the pieces with a new lineup as well. And, Brighton were really at it today, to their credit, coming to Anfield, they knew that they needed to be, aggressive and try to get the ball back. And they did that well. But yeah, once again, credit to Slot at halftime. We'll talk about the forced substitution, but that changed things a lot as well. Because Joe Gomez for the second consecutive game against Brighton was impressive.
Yeah, I thought he was too. And again, like I say, we all get onto that, Harry. With those Brighton players, the battle that really I thought took place from a Brighton perspective was Mitoma versus Trent. And actually, when Konate did go off at halftime, I thought, oh man, Mitoma's going to have his joy here because Konate comes across so well more often than not and covers, not for Trent, but covers, across with him and they could double up on Mitoma. But that battle for me was fascinating. And Trent didn't have the best day in terms of his first 60 minutes. He showed great mentality to get back into the game and do actually really well. I thought defensively, his one-on-ones today, Trent was really good the most of the time. But there was a couple of times where Mitoma literally just skipped by him, in the first half especially, just knocked it, skipped one way and jetted off the other side. What defensively could Liverpool have done a little bit better? Because I don't think you can blame anyone in the Liverpool shirt for that first goal. That the Kaliargu strike where he's literally hit the post. He couldn't have placed it any better. No goalkeeper in the world saves that posting in. Tsimikas gets drawn in because Gravenberch, if you look from midfield, Trent has to come across. Gravenberch doesn't quite make it back in time, so Trent has to tuck in, which means Simi has to tuck in, which means Kaliargu at the back post has got to come. And he's basically got a free hit on goal. So I don't think you can blame anyone for the goal. However, we did look vulnerable a couple of times defensively, didn't we, Harry?
Yeah, I think they had us with the overlap every now and then. I think Mitoma did. I agree with you. He skipped past Trent quite a few times on left. Luckily, not a whole lot came from it overall. On a different day, they could have had 3 goals from that side, depending on what happens. I think with enough what we see with Konate is he comes out and meets that left winger more often than not. But I felt like today he wasn't on it. He wasn't out there like he usually is. When you see against Martinelli or Vinicius are the 2 you think of from the top of your head. He wasn't out there meeting him. And I don't know if that was something with our setup with the midfield. I don't know. To be honest with you, I spent a lot of the first half trying to find a good stream to watch. So I was worried talking about it because I saw about half of the first half, but I did see a lot of Mitoma. And I think in the second half, Trent did have him. I think there were a lot of 1v1 scenarios where he just has to stand tall and, get his body in there. And more often than not, he'll get a foot in, take it off him and get away with it. But yeah, Mitoma was quite dangerous today, and we're probably quite lucky more didn't come from it in the end.
Yeah, he was certainly the danger man for me. I think, Kanahoglu, I've probably butchered his name, so I do apologise if you're watching. I thought, I completely agree with Lassetti here. Playing Kanahoglu where he did was a great move, because I couldn't really work out where he was playing, because obviously, he's playing on that right side, but he's tucking in almost in that right side, almost in that Trent role is an inverted wing back player, but in the midfield. And there was so much good, I think, from him. He really impressed me. I know he got a booking in both games, but he really impressed me in the first game actually as well. He's a new signing, isn't he, for Brighton from Fenerbahce? So yeah, his position really interested me today. That first half, nothing seemed to be going right. There was no second ball. Everything we tried, we couldn't break them down. Very, very poor passing wise as well. Very, very poor defensively in terms of, giving the ball away in bad defensive positions. McAllister picked up a yellow card, didn't he, from a very poor Trent Alexander-Arnold pass. And I just wanted to pick something up that Jace had said, Dylan. Trent looks checked out. I think personally, that's a little bit harsh. I could see where he was coming from after that first 50, 60 minutes, because Mitoma, like I said, went by him too easily on a couple of occasions. But I do think, as I said, defensively he did okay. A couple of his balls were really unlike Trent, giving the ball away in key areas. He couldn't quite make the switch over at one point. It's like he didn't lean his body back enough and chip the ball over, and it went straight to the left centre-back of Brighton. So, it was a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde performance from Trent today. Where do you think his head's at? Because it can't be easy. I would like to think optimistically, he wants to stay at Liverpool. He wants to be Liverpool captain. But Madrid, the best club in the world, are knocking on the door. How hard is that at the moment for Trent, do you think?
Yeah, no, it can't be easy, the amount of talk that's always around him, because the contract situations, until they're resolved either way or the other, there's always going to be chatter coming about, and especially when clubs are coming in, especially with the European pedigree of them in terms of where they are as well. But let's not forget, we're also a massive club, so people do want to play for us as well. And I think slightly harsh in terms of that comment as well, in terms of maybe checked out, because defensively for me today, he was a lot more sound than he is in other games. Yes, his passing wasn't there at times, and he wasn't as good probably going forward at stages today. But defensively, I think he was more solid today than he has been in a lot of other games. It reminded me a bit of the Crystal Palace game, where he wasn't really on the ball as much. His passes weren't really connecting as much as often as they normally are. But defensively, he was sound for most of the game. Yes, there's the odd occasion where Mitoma did get past him in that first half when he wasn't playing well. But let's face it, no one really played well in the first half. So in the second half, when we really needed it, and then when we were under the cosh for the last probably 10 minutes or so, when we needed everyone to be a little bit more solid, he was. So yeah, I can't really have much more to complain in terms of the second half performance in particular.
Yeah, and like I said, I think defensively, as much as it's becoming now a myth for me that Trent can't defend, and that's the way that I feel about it, because I'm like, well, he can defend. Even when people saying, oh, he's going to the Euros, he still had better defensive stats than the likes of Kyle Walker, who was England's right back. So for me, I think it's becoming more and more of a myth the more that Gary Neville likes to pump out his propaganda in terms of Trent can't defend, and then Roy Keane jumps on the bandwagon. I do think it's a little bit of a myth, although today, like I say, maybe not one for the highlight reel. Funny though, CT, what the quotes were, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter in the week, that someone said that Trent had said, if he angles, that Slot had picked out, if you angle your body 8 degrees more, you've got a far better chance of being more solid defensively. And Trent was like blown away by this. And allegedly, again, it's a quote from Trent, not Twent. It depends really how much you read into it, but it looks like Arne Slot has looked at Trent and seen the capability that he has going forwards, and is just absolutely excellent passing range. And then they said, okay, well, look, defensively, you could do this. And it's made Trent become a little bit more whole as a complete wing back, I think. Is there anything more that you think that Trent can do to add to his game, or do you think that's it, let him cook?
Yeah, I think obviously he's naturally an attacking fullback, and so that's the best part of his game. However, he's very versatile because he can be a very solid defender, and I think Slot, seeing areas where he can improve is all the things that you want to hear, and all the value that Slot's brought to this club, and I think it's amazing. Yeah, I saw those quotes, and I think there's been improvement. I really do. I don't think Trent's checked out, but again, I can understand why it looks that way at times. I think today more so was about complacency. Like I said, when you're playing the same team again, you've got their measure, and I think we just maybe expected to show up and just get the win. But Brighton had other ideas. But with Trent, I think areas that I think could be better at obviously is the angles. Like I said, dictating, like Virgil does so well, dictating where you want to send the attacker. A simple angle of your body can give that side where you want the attacker to go. And I think kind of similar to how Connor Bradley had that error earlier in the season. I think was it against Forest, ironically, where he let the guy come inside, and he kind of just turned his body. So I think that's a good example of making sure that you are facing the right side. But with Trent, it really was a case of he got fired up, and it fired up everyone. Nothing like a good altercation to get the juices flowing, and that was what we needed.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. That was good. That head-to-head with Estepinian. I thought that's exactly what we needed in those moments. And football is so funny, isn't it? One massive tackle goes in and the crowd is alight. There was a moment where I was fearing for the crowd because, you could hear the Brighton fans quite rightly singing at one point, "Where's your famous atmosphere?" And I was really hoping that Anfield didn't go dead, because in the second half, we saw it come alive and we saw it become electrifying, and we scored 2 goals. And Anfield is so magical like that. When everyone is singing and when everyone's on par, it is, you're giving that energy and you're giving, those players like something like a superhero power. And that's why Anfield is so special. And listen, anyone can say that it's a myth. Go back and watch that 5 minutes where Liverpool scored 2 goals, where Anfield is absolutely rocking, and tell me it doesn't make a difference. Because if you do, I would pretty much say that you're absolutely wrong, because there is a massive difference. But it's funny, isn't it? So you say that the Trent and Estepinian head to head. I personally wouldn't want to get close to Estepinian. I think he's an absolute warrior. So fair play for Trent for doing that. But it is quite funny that little things like that make a big difference. Speaking about little things, this is a big thing, Harry, then for you, because we are going to have to discuss something that happened right on the cusp of half time, and that's where, from the corner, it looked as if when Konate was on the floor, Virgil van Dijk stepped on Konate's hand or wrist, when it was maybe a 30-degree angle, and he obviously went off injured. Now, originally he went off with his kit, and I thought it was with his kit holding his elbow. I thought it might have been his shoulder, because that's normally what you do if you get a fractured collarbone or a fractured shoulder, or your shoulder pops out, to support it. But it was actually his hand. And the impact was Virgil, obviously coming down from a jump, going onto his hand. So there could be some significant bone damage in there. It could be ligament damage if obviously he was holding it and then it was forced down. We'll get on to Joe Gomez in a moment, but it doesn't look good. Now, Ernest Slot has said, he's going to go to hospital. He's going to have it scanned. He didn't have an update really for us. But how big of a blow, Harry, is that? Because Konate has been brilliant for the past 3 months. Not just defensively, but in the air as well. He's been absolutely phenomenal at set pieces. So, how big of a blow, if with a run of games coming up, even a few weeks is going to be?
Yeah, it's a hard one to take, because I think for the first time in his Liverpool career, he's had that proper run of games next to Virgil where he's starting to look like, obviously not his equal, but he's starting to get to that next level. We always knew he was a good defender, but he had the little mistakes in him, which are still there. But we've always seen he's that run of games to really solidify himself as, well, definitely the second centre-back, but closer and closer to Van Dijk. So if he's out for weeks, not only is it a blow because we're again lacking defensive depth, well, at least centrally. But again, he might come back, and that's sort of everything he's been building up to is reset, and he starts again. And then we've got to hope he doesn't get a different injury. It's very frustrating with him because we know how good he is. I remember saying to my friends about it. On his day, I genuinely believe he's one of the best centre-backs in the world. Top 10. I think he's an incredible centre-back. There's obviously things that need to be fixed. But yeah, if he's going to get to that level one day, he needs at least a full season of games, without an injury. But if we're going to move on to Gomez, I thought he was incredible today. I don't remember him putting a foot wrong. And I'll let you move on to it. But he was my man of the match. That's what I'd say.
And when he comes in, he does such a great job. And yeah, I think it was a little bit of a miss, really, for Rana. And I know that Gomez was supposed to go to Newcastle with that deal with Gordon, and he obviously wanted to leave. But I think there was a bit of a miss starting Quanta at the start of the season and not playing Gomez more regularly. I know that Conor Bradley now has come into that right back role. So I think he's fantastic. But yeah, for me, Gomez, he's an absolute nailed on. Again, like we're saying about Kelleher, Gomez can come in and do that job. He's not had a bad game in a very long time. And I know he's not playing full 90 minutes right now, but he might very well, Dylan, with this Konate injury. And again, the same or similar question to you is, I suppose with this big run of games coming up, how big of a miss is Ibou going to be? Or is it the fact that we can cover him with Joe Gomez? Nasedi has said, there haven't been 5 better centre-backs than Ibou this season. I think you're probably right. I can't imagine there to be more in the Premier League, certainly.
Yeah, even across Europe, to be honest with you, when you look at the centre-half partnerships that are going, Virgil and Ibou have been the two standout across Europe this season. And I think the relationship that they've built has also, we've had conversations before that Kelleher should be a number one, but I think then it doesn't put any sort of strain on the Kelleher coming in away from Alisson being injured as well, the way they'd started the season. So don't get me wrong, it could be big if he does have a long period out, but it's almost speculation as a starting point, isn't it, to see how long he might be out, because we can't really say. But if he is to miss a couple of games, I don't think it'd be huge, because Joe Gomez stepped in midweek, was fine, stepped in today, very, very good performance second half as well. So as long as it's not a longer term injury for a little while, then I think we'll be fine. I think it's all dependent on potentially how long that injury is going to be, and fingers crossed for us that relationship between him and Virgil can continue and we can keep as many goals out as we have been so far this season.
And with a hand, it's never as bad as with a leg or a foot or a groin or a hamstring or anything to do with your lower body, because you can obviously play with some support cast, and you can play with that there. Hopefully, as I say, even if, let's say it's the worst, it's a broken hand or torn ligaments, you're looking at 6 weeks. Now that is a long time, but you can come back hopefully a little bit sooner with a cast on or with a brace on. And you just obviously have to manage it and be quite careful. It depends on your risk of injury. But hopefully it's not going to impact Liverpool too much, because I do think, Joe Gomez is there and he's ready as well. He's ready to come on. He's ready to step in. CT, would Ibou have scored those 2 chances that Joe Gomez had with his head?
Probably, maybe one of them. I'll say maybe one of them. There was a great chance, but I'm waiting to see Joe score. Hopefully in my lifetime, our lifetime. But I was just thinking as you were asking the lads, obviously a lot of people are talking about the 2019 season, the 1920 season with Gomez and Verge, and the consistency that those guys had. So I guess that's a silver lining, with Joe having, he'll know the job at hand and what to do, and to step in, and he knows all the competition, and he's just that seasoned vet that to his credit stuck around, when some people may not have stuck around. And obviously Slot, it's a credit to him as well, because I think Joe did ultimately have a decision, but he didn't kind of force that move. He said, I'm happy to stick around and for another season and see what minutes I pick up. but yeah, we're heading into a really critical part of the season, and I think this is where we mentioned that we're top of the league, and a huge run of games to come in, and I don't think Konate is going to be out that long, like you said. I think the hand and arm injury hopefully isn't as serious as it could be, but I don't think it'll keep him sidelined for for more than maybe 4 or 5 weeks at the most. But yeah, I just feel for Ibou because he's been wanting that man of the match and he's been deserving of it, and he's put together, I think, arguably the best stretch of his career, and he's just been unbelievable since that Ipswich game. So I feel for him at this point in time. Firstly, but I feel like we've got the cover. It is going to be tricky though, rotating. I think Kwanzaa now is probably stepping up and definitely seeing minutes with probably with Gomez in cup games. I'll ask you, who, if Ibou's out, like how would you rotate the squad? Obviously Gomez comes in for the league games, but is there something I'm not thinking of? Like, is there another option for the other games?
Not really. Nothing from what I can tell. I think it's a bit early for a few of the youth teams to step in, like what we saw last year when we saw the likes of Bobby Clark, Jamie Connell come in. Centre back's a bit of a different kettle of fish. Now I know we saw that a few years ago with Reece Williams and Nate Phillips, obviously coming in and doing a great job. But I think with the youth and the academy that Liverpool have, I think it is going to be a rotational basis of Gomez, Verge, and Kwanzaa. And you've just got to pray to all of the gods, that a Virgil injury or a Gomez injury doesn't happen, because if you're pairing Verge with, if those two go down, you're essentially pairing Kwanzaa with somebody, who hasn't had any Premier League experience, and that's something that we don't want to go into. And I'm sure that Slot won't make the Klopp mistake of playing Henderson and Fabinho, or let's say Graven, Birch and McAllister at centre back. But we'll see. Just keep all your fingers crossed. And like I say, at least with hand injuries, you can always keep your fitness up, because you can always go out running. You can always. I've had broken hands, fingers, etc. And you can always keep your CV up. So it's not like when your legs go, you can't run. That's it. And your match fitness goes. I know your match fitness will naturally go, but your actual fitness will still stay, because obviously you can run without your hands. Harry, let's talk. I really am intrigued about this left back situation for Liverpool, and then I promise we'll move on to the second half, because we've got over 1,000 of you listening and you want to hear the good stuff. All right, so we will get onto that. But I thought, and again, this is going to be so controversial, I thought there's a massive shout for Tsimikas to be man of the match today. He started very slow, but actually, I thought he was one of the better performers on that pitch. I thought he did everything that he did very well defensively. I thought at times, as we said about Kanahoglu, he had to look at two players. He had to look at his winger and obviously Kanahoglu as well. I thought Tsimikas played very, very well. And the fact that, Robbo's been trusted in the Cup and Simi's been trusted in the Premier League, that speaks volumes for me, Harry. And I don't know whether you agree or not, but does it look as though Tsimikas has overtaken Robertson, but also does it make you wary, because we know sometimes Tsimikas isn't always 100% like, the Flying Scotsman always used to be?
Yeah, we've obviously seen Tsimikas have the odd dodgy game every now and then, but I think it's refreshing to see a manager pick players on form, because I think we've had a lot of times over the years where we've been screaming for players to start, and Klopp's always had a favourite. And that's not knocking Jurgen Klopp. It's just sort of giving credit to Arne Slot that he does like to sort of play players based on form and what he sees in games and training. I think Tsimikas has the footballing ability over Robertson. I think that's safe to say. I think Robertson is a very good defender. He's got a very good left foot, but he's not technical. His corners, we shout. I'm sure we're all shouting at the TV every time Robertson takes a corner, because it doesn't beat the first man. Tsimikas has a lovely corner on him. I think we've scored at least 2 already this season from his set pieces. And yeah, it's nice to see him starting when he deserves it. I think I remember a few years back, maybe his second season at the club, he had a really good spell, but just in cup games, and Klopp wouldn't give him the start, and we were all calling for it. So it's nice to see. But yeah, we've just got to wait to see if he can continue this form. I think if Konate was fit and Tsimikas wasn't performing, I think I'd like to see Gomez there again, to be honest with you. I think he looked incredible at left back last season. But yeah, for now, I'm happy with Tsimikas. I agree, he was also a contender for man of the match. I've seen a lot of other people say that, actually, to be fair. So yeah, I'm happy with him for now, and long may it continue.
Second half then, well, let's say up until about 60 minutes. Things still weren't going right. We made a couple of changes and Diaz came on, and there was actually a moment where I can't remember now who it was who broke through the midfield, and we had a massive overlap, and we've played the ball through. Diaz is running through, and it's come off the back of his heel. And I was like, yeah, sums it all up. Like, people were getting in each other's way. You had the Nunes and Virgil van Dijk bit where I'm like, they're both trying to go for the same ball. Maybe Van Dijk should have left it for Nunes. Maybe Nunes should have left it Van Dijk, whatever. Things still weren't clicking. And it wasn't really until that cross comes shot, and I'm still sure it was a cross. It was only the fact that Nunes, whether he meant to or not, because if he's not meant it, that's like the assist of the season, because, if he's meant it, he's going straight into the goalkeeper's arms. But that goal shifted things, didn't it, Dylan? And Gakpo now has scored 3 goals in against Brighton in the space of like 4 days. How big of a player is Cody? Getting the nod over Diaz, by the way, on that left-hand side. But how big of a player has he been this season, do you think?
Yeah, he's come on massively this season, in all honesty, in pretty much every game he's played, to be fair. I think Sky Sports actually gave him man of the match on their stuff after the game as well. So I think he was put down as their man of the match. I think he wasn't quite as effective today as he was in midweek, in terms of not just because he didn't score like the 2 goals he did in midweek, but in terms of always attacking, always being dynamic down the left-hand side. Because it wasn't really working with the passing midfield, he didn't really get as much opportunity to be on the ball as much. So potentially not mainly his fault why he couldn't get into the game as much. But in terms of overall during this season, he's come on massively. In terms of last season, I've got to be honest, I was one of the people that was always saying he slows the ball down for us too much. And when we're attacking on a break, he's one of them people that was holding on to it a little bit too much, making wrong decisions. And I think that was partly because he was in and out of the team a lot rather than having consistent runs of games. And I think the Euros obviously did him quite a bit of confidence, scoring a few goals over there as well. And then since he's come in, him and Diaz, it's a toss-up every week of who's going to start above them, because every time Diaz comes in, just as positive. Gakpo now pushing him every week to start as well. So long may it continue on that left-hand side. If we see one swap in and play well and then the other one swap in and play well, it doesn't really matter to me which one of them is doing it, as long as one of them is. So yeah, no, I think in terms of coming on this season, massive. And I'm in your camp as well. I think it was a cross. I think Nunes ducked slightly out of the way of it. And I think we needed that, though. I think we needed a moment just to go, because it did, like you said, it felt like it just wasn't going to break for us, and there's just moments weren't going to happen for us like they did in some games, and it was inevitable that we probably weren't going to score. So a little bit of luck to go our way, and then speak about inevitable. It just felt straight away, as soon as you said the crowd in that 5 or 10 minutes, it felt like we were just going to score straight away as soon as we got a chance, and Mo smashed one in the top corner. So yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and with Cody, I think it just solidified the fact he's not a centre forward when it came to the Euros, because he was so effective coming in from that left-hand side. He was absolutely brilliant the whole of that Euro competition. And, there was always a Diaz, Nunes, because I still think Nunes is really good on that left-hand side too. But there was always, we had too many left-hand sided players. Nunes now obviously going in the middle. I think that works. And for me, Gakpo he's a left forward all day long. He's not a centre forward. He's certainly not a number 8 or a 10 like Klopp tried to play him in at the beginning of last season due to obviously injuries. And I was impressed with him, as I was in midweek as well. I always think he's always got a shot on target in him. He's always got that goal threat. He always looks lively. He always looks like he wants to do something. So, I mean, listen, those subs, Diaz and Curtis Jones coming in, for me, changed the game. And CT, I don't know whether you agree or not, but Curtis Jones did more in the 10 minutes, just the first 10 minutes that he was on the pitch, that Dom Szoboszlai did all game. And now that's not me slating Dom at all. I just don't think he was at the races, but no one was really in that first 45 minutes. I just think Jones came on, and likewise, it could have happened the other way around, couldn't it? You know, it could have been that Curtis came off the pitch and Dom came on and changed the game with slightly tired Brighton legs. But, you know, Jones, in the instance of the press, looked a little bit better. Obviously, he got his assist as well. That the first goal with his Cruyff turn as well. You know, I just think that there's such great competition between Szoboszlai and Jones. We were mentioning about Robbo and Tsimikas, and we're talking about Diaz and Gakpo. Well, actually, you've got a great competition between Curtis Jones and Dom Szoboszlai for that 10-8 hybrid position. And again, you know, how impressed were you with the changes, with the players who came on? You know, what did you think overall of the subs' impact to just lead up to that first goal?
It was instrumental. I think, yeah, you know, the experience to bring on a Curtis Jones and bring on a, you know, the changes with Gomez as well. You know, the experience that they showed changed the game. I think, like you said, you know, I think Szoboszlai was probably the worst player if I had to pick. But again, I'm not trying to single him out. I'm just trying to say
I didn't say he was the worst player, just before all the Dom haters come at me, Dom lovers come at me. I didn't say he was the worst player. I'm just saying that I did think Curtis Jones played better.
Yeah. Yeah, look, yeah, Jones, I think, again, the consistency from midweek, I think, you know, being at that game and, you know, the press was on point, like you said, and, you know, the feel for the game to just come in as a sub. You know, this is a player that's been used to coming off the bench. He hasn't been starting for us a whole lot over the last 2 years, but, you know, yeah, it was great, you know, and again, with Cody, like, I'm with you 100%. Left wing is his position, but I think him and Diaz offer slightly different qualities, you know, different qualities that they bring on the positive side. I think Cody's ball striking and he's a lot more direct, whereas Diaz is obviously so crafty with the dribbles and he loves to take players on a lot more and be on the ball a lot more, and he can get, you know, he can get into the byline and the box, but Cody loves to come around on his right. And then, of course, we saw the banger that he scored, and he's got the huge ball strike on him as well. So yeah, it's a healthy situation we're in, you know, with a great run of games to come, that these guys are getting the minutes that they all deserve, but we're getting healthy rotation out of Slot. So I'm really liking that from Slot as well. I think that's another feather in his cap. And yeah, just echo the thoughts that the lad said about TSIMI. You know, he's 28 years old. I just, you know, had to Google how old he is. And I think this is about the year now where it's kind of now or never for him. And a lot of people wanted Tsimikas or the club to maybe look at selling him or getting other, you know, backups for the left back position. And that's still an area that I think the club will be looking at. As of right now, he's 28, and I think he's taken his opportunities. Yeah, again, he brings the crossing. He's technical on the ball. Obviously, he's not as good as a, you know, man-to-man defender, I feel, as Robbo is, but you know, he's really deserving his opportunities, and I think it's a toss-up between him and Joe for the man of the match for me.
Good. I'm glad I wasn't the only one in the camp then, because I was thinking about earlier. I was like, oh gosh, like everyone tends to. Tsimikas isn't many people who they're going to go and get his name printed on the back of their shirt. So you know, he has certainly drawn controversy. He's certainly a grey player in terms of, you know, some people are in, some people are out. But yeah, I generally thought that those subs changed the game, and it really helped, as I say, that crowd to bring us on. Harry, you get the glory here, to Jones running through the midfield and passing it to Mo Salah, who, if you could literally ask AI, show me what a Mo Salah goal looks like, show me what a typical Mo Salah goal would look like, it would come up with that. Because, you know, taking it on, I thought he did very well past Estepinian, by the way, because that wasn't easy. It was not an easy goal. You go back and look at it. It's not an easy goal. The ball comes over him. He's got to nod it past Estepinian first, get his feet sorted, and then hit it with the power that it needed to beat a very good Brighton goalkeeper today. I thought the goalkeeper was actually really, really good. You know, he had a very strong save against McAllister in the first half. He made a very good save against Nunez as well. Sorry, McAllister was the second half. But yeah, you know, to beat Everbruggen at that pace really needed the power, but also the precision and the bend as well. And like I say, you know, hey Siri or whatever it is, show me what a Mo Salah goal looks like. They would come out with that because that is a typical Mo Salah goal. How much did you scream at your TV?
Yeah, I think my throat's still feeling the after effects now, to be honest with you, because it was, you know, Gakpo a few minutes before, and then that it was such a quick turnaround. And after shouting out of anger, it was a nice switch up. But after that, yeah, I was surprised when I saw the goal back actually, because it wasn't really proper top corner, was it? But he must have hit it so hard that Verbruggen gets his fingers to it, but just bends them back. He was never stopping it. I think it's nice to see him scoring that type of goal again, because I think if you think back, there's a lot of times he's been cutting in, not this season but previous seasons, and he sends it wide, and it was like he'd lost his touch for those sort of finishes. Thinking back to 2018 or 17-18, where he'd put them in every time he had a shot, basically. And yeah, get Curtis Jones getting the assist was lovely to see as well. It shows how impactful slot subs are every game. I think that's something we've got to give him a lot of credit for, because he's getting it right more often than not now with substitutions. Whereas you think back to some Klopp games and you think we're calling for subs and it's about the 75th minute and someone comes on and they haven't even got time to make an impact. So it's good that Slot sees something he wants to change and just does it. And it's really good to see. Yeah,
I really like the fact that he brought on Conor Bradley for Mo Salah, mainly because like Bradley on that right hand side, double up with Trent. You know, that's where the threat was coming from a lot of the time. Double up with Trent. He won a couple of really good free kicks, actually, Bradley, to really wind that clock down. And this is a lad who's just been promoted from the youth team, and he's playing beyond his years. For me, you know, he's got such a great footballing brain. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for Conor Bradley. But going back to Mo Salah, Dylan, he has 132 goal assists at Anfield in 132 games. That's phenomenal. He also moved one over Robbie Fowler today in terms of the all-time Premier League goal scorers. He's moved now up to 8 in the list. And the next one, the Arsenal great, the Arsenal legend, the Arsenal best of all time, Thierry Henry. He's 11 goals behind him. So if he goes on to obviously surpass Thierry Henry, then that's something, you know, that people would have dreamed of on the day that he signed for Roma. All those many years ago. Just how important is Mo Salah to this Liverpool team, Dylan? Because for me, he and Verge are the first names on the team sheet, along with perhaps Ali when he's fit.
Yeah, it's like you said, he's always been massive in our team, hasn't he? Because even throughout the game today, he wasn't in the game for massive periods, to be honest with you. There's long periods of the game where Estepinian was doing quite well against him. He was not keeping him out all the time, but he was restricting him to quite a lot. But then it's just the moment that you get from Mo Salah. He just all of a sudden cuts inside, and that's the kind of moment he can just create out of nowhere in most games. So it's hard to criticize when he does have a game where he doesn't do much at all, because you know there's always a moment like that in him where all he needs is a couple of yards of space and he can find the top corner that easily in these types of games. So it's the difference maker. And during the season, if we win game by a single goal and they're all like that, or anywhere near like that, let's keep it going, because if he's going to win us games that are close and tight, where we're not really at our best for long periods, or can we still come out and be top of the league? That's what we need, isn't it? So yeah, perfect.
It's also one of those that actually you can see that he loves playing. You know, his emotion, not just scoring the goals, but his emotion at everything. I didn't think he played very well, although, like we already said, no one really played very well first half. I thought he did ghost in and out of that first half, but it's quite positive to hear that all 3 contract talks are now taking place. If you listen to Arne Slot's press conference from yesterday, because all 3 have to renew, you know, and I say this most weeks now, but all 3 have to renew, even if they have release clauses in them. You've just got to renew them, you know, because all 3 are such great players. You saw all 3 of them today again, you know, really from the 60th minute onwards become, you know, the players who we need them to be. CT, there isn't a person in the world who can do what Mo Salah has done over the course of, you know, these past 5 or 6 years for Liverpool Football Club. And like I say, 132 goals or assists in 132 Anfield games is absolutely phenomenal, absolutely unreal. Again, I suppose it's Chiesa, you know, not being fit, not being available. That was always going to be the risk. Can Mo continue to do this week in, week out? Or do we need Harvey Elliott to come back? Do we need Chiesa to stand up? Do we need to play Conor Bradley on that right-hand side? You know, Mo Salah's got a better six-pack than me, just slightly, only ever so slightly. He's got a body made of Zeus. But can he still do it week in, week out? Or do we need to really look to reinforce somebody in that right position to make sure that, you know, we don't want him to burn out over the next couple of years if he stays with us, do we?
It's a great point you make, and I think, you know, look, credit to what he's been able to achieve in terms of the recent years of his career. I think he's got some, you know, at least a couple of great years still left. Keeps his body in such, you know, amazing condition, and you know, he treats the game with respect, and you know, and the professionalism. You know, it's always you know, something to admire with Mo. But having said that, you know, the teammates often set him up, you know, with those runs, and you know, you always got to pay credit to the balls played in, like you said, with Curtis, and it's usually Trent as well, the other name that, you know, we need to renew, like you said. But with replacing Mo, I mean, with the future, it's always going to be tricky. But the club needs to be thinking about that right now. You know, regardless of, you know, renewing Mo, we have to address some depth at that area, and maybe we thought we did with Chiesa, and maybe that's going to play out hopefully better than it has. You know, Slot seems to be a bit coy on, you know, when he can be back and how long it's going to take and all of that. But look, Mo's producing right now, and you know, like you said, he doesn't have, you know, big stretches of games where he dominates, but then he just bobs up, you know, when the game's there to be won. And it just seems like these fullbacks just continue to get left in his wake, you know, and they lapse for a second, and he comes in and he screws around on the left, and it's top bins. Look, I'm really heartwarmed by his quotes, you know, weeks ago on Sky, that, you know, he's loving his football still, you know, really happy with his, you know, the changes with Slot, and it's kind of reinvigorated everyone. And, you know, his daughter is a Scouse, and it just seems like he really wants to stay. And I just can't see Mo playing for any other club right now. And I know we've had that chat now, group chat, about, you know, which other club could he go to if it's not Liverpool. But, you know, I think it's here, you know, at least for a couple more years. And look, he's making a strong case for Rami, his agent, you know, because he's scored a couple of winners already for this season. And if we win the title, you know, it'd be insane to see if Mo doesn't stay.
I also think, like you say, what other clubs could go in for him apart from Saudi? I think his heart, you know, not his heart maybe, but I think his head would certainly say Saudi, but not yet. He still wants to be at that top level. His mentality is he wants to play at the top level for as long as he can, and rightly so. You know, he has a bit of Luis Suarez about him in terms of, you know, he wants to play at that top level, and then he'll go quite nicely to America, but he'll probably more likely go to Saudi. The only other club that's bigger than Liverpool, in my honest opinion, is Real Madrid. And someone had said in the chat, what makes Real Madrid so big? The 13 Champions League titles make them massive, as do their La Ligas, after their trophy count, you know, and it doesn't matter how much they are perceived to be in debt. They're owned by a king. Like, they are never going to struggle financially. They will be the biggest club in the world for a long time. But they've got Vinny. They've got Rodrigo. They're not going to go out and spend loads and loads of money on a Salah. They need a Trent Alexander-Arnold with an agent, Danny Carvalho. So, you know, that's where the worry is. But I think I absolutely agree with you, CT. Like, where else can he go? Unless Liverpool and FSG play an absolute stinker, I can't see him going anywhere else, because why would he? PSG aren't the club they used to be. Barcelona aren't the club they can't afford him, you know, but they're also not the club that they used to be. I know they spanked Madrid, obviously, in the El Clasico the other week as well. So for me, it's Liverpool or bust, or it's Liverpool or the millions and billions that Saudi will offer you in a couple of years anyway. So it'll be a really interesting thing to see where he goes. Harry, we already discussed the man of the matches, but I'm going to go round Harry, Dylan, and TT with your man of the matches. I'm going for Tsimikas. I'm going to stick my neck out on the line. I'm going for Kostas. It was a close call, actually, between him, Curtis Jones, and Joe Gomez. But Harry, who are you going to go for?
Yeah, I said before, I think where I watched the game, my whole time my head was telling me Gomez. Everything he did went right. So a lot of risky challenges he had to go in for, got him right every time. I thought his passing was good. I just think he had the perfect game. I think, and it's also difficult coming in at half time into a game like that. I think that's really difficult for a player. So yeah, for him to do that and come on and play a perfect game, I'm really happy with him, and I'd say he's my man of the match. But Kostas was also brilliant, and I have no qualms with saying he's man of the match as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you made. Like Gomez coming in after 45 minutes and really going into pretty much into the fire, wasn't it? By that point, by the second half, we had to go out and win. We couldn't concede another. So I think, Gomez was nothing short of fantastic. And where do you think his best position is, Harry? Because he can play anywhere across that back three. I want to see him play, if I'm completely honest, because I really trust him.
Yeah, I think if we're going to go off recent times, I think the best he's looked worthy enough was at left back. I thought at left back, I genuinely believed he was one of the best performing left backs in the league at the time, which feels a bit silly to say, but he was flawless. I remember it was when he came on for Tsimikas in an Arsenal game. I think Tsimikas collided with Klopp and Gomez was the only option. He came on and Saka hardly touched the ball after that. That's what I wanted to see him there again, to be honest with you. But I was very surprised when he came on today, because he's not played a whole lot at centre back over the last few years. He's been right back and then obviously left back. So for him to perform like that was really impressive.
I think with the emergence of Conor Bradley, that right back position is gone now, because it's Trent and Conor like all the way through. And like I say, Tsimikas seems to have stepped his game. And like I said, I wouldn't have minded really if he went in the summer. I'm glad that he didn't now. But if he went, I would have said, okay, yeah, thanks for the FA Cup, thanks for everything that you've done. And I would have happily waved him goodbye if we got a replacement in. But actually now I think, for Joe, that centre-back position, reuniting with Virgil, there's something poetic and something romantic perhaps about that as well. So, yeah, I think it's a great shout. I think Gomez was brilliant when he came on. I really... Again, like CT said earlier, love to see him score a Liverpool goal. We had two good opportunities today. I think the first opportunity was better than the second. And again, maybe he was just so surprised that he had a completely free header. But alas, it was not to be. It will happen, I'm sure of it. Dylan, your man of the match?
Yeah, I'm between a few people, to be honest with you. So you can't really argue with Joe Gomez being up there for it, because the second half performance, I think, in terms of the way he was willing to step forward with the ball out of there as well, it freed up a little bit in terms of the midfield, and it allowed us to kind of move up the pitch a little bit easier compared to the first half. But for me, it's between Kostas and Trent. In terms of Trent, yes, his passing wasn't nowhere near what it usually is today, but I think defensively against Matoma, against Adingra, when they were all trying to run at him in the second half, he showed that myth that he can't defend isn't there, because so many times in that second half they tried to knock it past him and he just took it away from them. So I think to almost stifle the people saying he can't defend is mainly the reason why I think look at the defensive performance today and tell me he can't defend, because that second half he showed he can. But in terms of Kostas, I can't argue with that either, because I think he won. I read the stats: 9 out of 9 duels. He won every single one.
Nice.
90, I think over 90% in terms of pass completion to everyone. I think. In terms of when you're playing that well, you can't really argue with it. So, yeah, I think just about edges it for me, Kostas as well.
Yeah, and you know what? Like whenever you read, I don't know, I'm just spitballing now, making it up off my head, but like the Rodri's 95% pass completion rate. Yeah, but if you look at them, they're sideways, backwards, like 60-70% of them. Kostas was going forwards quite a lot of the time as well. And his corners, I think Harry said earlier, his corners were so lethal. They're really good whipping in. you know, that we look dangerous from set pieces. And, you know, I do rate him on corners as well. CT, man of the match.
I think before I say who, I think it's kind of poetic, as you said, about the two players that I'm tossing up between Joe and Simi. That those two players have been with us for a while. They had opportunities to potentially move on, and they've both stuck around. And I think if you are to win a title, it's your squad that gets it done. And there was a lot of discourse over Liverpool's depth and and the weaknesses. People always willing to pick apart areas that they feel aren't strong enough. But here we are, top of the league. Tsimikas and Joe Gomez talked about as in a big league game as two of the men of the match. So I think that's a huge credit to those two. But I'm going to go with Tsimikas on this one. I think he thoroughly deserves it. He's been with us a while and always been the second fiddle, and it's just great story to see him now rise up when we need and give us that extra depth, but the quality as well. And shout out to Slot for getting that bit extra, I think, out of Tsimikas. I think he has improved defensively because he did have a couple of howlers in the past. Defensively, he's always had the quality. The balls played in and positioning wise is not bad, but for him to sort of start to put it all together now, which is great. But I think it says a lot about a player's professionalism to accept their role. As I said, squads win championships, and if for these talented players to be a Greek international, and although we know how big Liverpool is as a club, but to not be playing week in, week out, it really does test your will as a competitor. These are top flight footballers that want to play regularly, and it's not always easy to sit on the bench and see your first string teammate always get the run in. So I think, much deserved for Tsimikas today.
Yeah, really nice summary. Well done. I think, like you said, you touched on some really good points in terms of, Gomez and Tsimikas look like they might have gone in the summer. They've stuck around and what a great job they've done today. And hopefully what a great job they've done in the future as well. I would like to wind down there. And, I do think that it was a great second half performance. Well, last 30-minute performance. And Liverpool got the job done and we're top of the league. And Man City dropping points and Arsenal dropping points. Who would have thunk it? Because, that's something sensational that even I think all of the famous Coppites and most optimistic of us could not have believed. So we go a few points clear of City, a lot of points clear of Arsenal. And Nottingham Forest, the superstars that they are, in third place, and rightly so as well, because I think they've been nothing short of sensational. Thank you all for joining us on the Saturday night stream. For Dylan, CT, and Harry, thank you so much for making my job easier and being so influential and so insightful as you are as well. So, thank you very much. I'm not here next week because I will be at Anfield. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, which means I will not be about afterwards. But I hope the Saturday night stream does better, really, because life goes on. There's been nearly 2,000 of you joining us tonight, so thank you all so much for that. And we're top of the league, boys. Top of the league. Any final thoughts, Dylan, CT, Harry? Anything else you'd like to say or like to add?
Keep it going, lads. Top of the league. Keep building on it the next couple of games. If we can be top by the next international break, then see where we go from there and push on for the rest of the season. Big one ahead, I think.
Yep, echo Dylan's thoughts. But now we have the chance to put the nail in Arsenal's coffin in that Anfield leg. Go 9 points clear, and that'll end their season. I mean, I'm comfortable saying right now that a 9-point lead, Arsenal are not coming back from that. So that Anfield tie against Arsenal, for me, I'm just circling that right now.
And for Arsenal as well, it's such a funny one because they didn't even look threatening today. I thought Newcastle absolutely dominated them. I thought they cleared them out. I don't even know if they have had a shot on target. I was waiting for a Saka shot on target, and as with most of the Sky Bet customers as well, I'm sure. I don't even think that Arsenal had a shot on target. So, they look like a shadow of them for themselves. I do think City would be the team to beat. Pep said he only had 13 senior players fit. Obviously, they lost at Bournemouth. They're always going to get better, and they're a juggernaut after Christmas, which is why Liverpool needed to win today, needed to make them those points and games count. Harry?
Yeah, nothing much to add. Just long may Slot's domination continue, and I'm sure we're all enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's been phenomenal. I was not wary because I know that, you know, we would have got it right. But I do think he's surpassed all of our expectations. To be 10 games in, nearly a third of the season in and top of the league and points clear. I don't know if the most optimistic of Copites could have predicted that. But anyway, thank you all for joining us, and thank you to my wonderful guests as well for making my life a lot easier. Take care, God bless, and as always, up the Reds, because we're top of the league.